Okay, thank you, Jesse. Good afternoon, everyone. At least afternoon for everyone on the East Coast. I'm going to walk you through today an introduction to the visualization tool that was added to the Report Studio and Cognos Workspace Advanced world with the advent of Cognos 10.2.1. I'll describe what they are, what makes them valuable to you. I'll tell you when I tell you what they are, that they are extensible, and I'll describe what extensible actually means. How you get visualizations and add them to your installation, because even when you upgrade to 10.2.1, after you've upgraded, you will actually have no visualizations loaded in your environment. They're actually something you need to go and get and install separately. I'll then go ahead and I'll build an active report using an advanced visualization with you. And then I'll also do a standard report, the non-active report, using either Report Studio or Cognos Workspace Advanced in my demo, or perhaps both if we have time and we have interest. And then using that report that I'll have built with one of those two studios, that standard report, I'll actually drag that visualization into a Cognos Workspace and show you how visualizations look and interact on a Cognos Workspace. And then hopefully there'll be some time for questions and hopefully there'll be answers to those questions at the end of the webinar. So with that as preamble, let me talk to you about what they are. So advanced visualization, I guess you could really reduce what they are down to a new tool in the Toolbox tab in Report Studio and Cognos Workspace Advanced. That's how they'll manifest. That's how you'll first notice them. You'll look at your toolbox as an author and you'll say, oh, I have a tool. And that tool was again introduced in Cognos 10.2.1. A visualization is a new way to show data in a graphical format. So it's, if you will, it extends the Cognos charts, but it's not a chart object. So it's not part of the chart tool. And when you drag the chart tool on, it doesn't really give you a list of visualizations. It's another tool that launches a wizard. It gives you a list of visualizations you could add to your report in addition to the charts. Now, the Cognos charts are fixed. They are static. When you install Cognos, there's a collection of charts. You don't have a chance to change how they look or feel. You don't have a chance to add to that list unless Cognos happens to add to that list in another release. That is the opposite of what the visualizations are. So visualizations launch a wizard and they show you a list of visualizations. And not only can you download new visualizations as they become available, and therefore you don't have to do a Cognos upgrade to get new visualizations, there is actually a tool where you can go out and you can actually create new visualizations and add them to your library as needed. Now these visualizations use a language called BizJSON. And the BizJSON, I'll show you an example of what this looks like. The BizJSON standard is actually based on a book called The Grammar of Graphics. And it's a standardized way to describe visualizations. The visualizations that you describe in BizJSON are actually implemented on your Cognos reports through something called the Rapidly Adaptive Visualization Engine, or RAVE. So if you hear folks talk about the RAVE engine, or if you Google the RAVE engine on IBM, what you'll get is a whole bunch of information about these visualizations. So the RAVE engine is baked into the Cognos viewer. It's baked into your active report. And then you grab a visualization, you drop it on your report, and you lay it out the way you'd lay out any other report. And behind that visualization object is a BizJSON little program that describes how that visualization should look when you load it with a measure and a category and a series. So it is a lot like charts from a drop-down perspective. And then the RAVE engine renders what that BizJSON program says. Now, do you have to be a BizJSON programmer to use visualizations? Absolutely not. Can you impact what they look like? Can you create new ones? Can you modify existing ones if you are a BizJSON person? Absolutely you can. So how do visualizations actually improve my report? Well, visualization of data in a chart, in a spatial context, say on a map, that's a keystone of reporting. Certainly tabular data has its place, and for operational reporting, for reporting about individual transactions, right, tabular data is probably going to suit most needs. But as you move from operational reporting into the world of analytics, expressing your data as some sort of picture that allows you to find correlations, allows you to see relationships is key. And these visualizations extend the ability of Cognos beyond what's in the standard chart library of column charts and pie charts and those sorts of things into brand new views of data like heat maps and tree maps and almost any visualization you can imagine. Because of this grammar of graphics, you see, I can describe many visualizations that go beyond the standard. Now, different sets of data require different visualizations to give you maximum insight. And so, again, we go back to the IBM Cognos charts. There's necessarily optimal for every data set to provide maximum insight to those data sets. So with a visualization, you can expose new opportunities in your data, either opportunities to stop something that is undermining a result, or perhaps opportunities to notice something that is actually good going on that you maybe want to increase or spread throughout your organization that would increase operational results. Either way, though, visualizations are in addition to, not instead of, the Cognos standard chart capability. It's just another option, but these options are quite different. For all that there is actually some overlap, there is certainly a visualization that is a bar chart. And you can use a visualization for your bar chart, or you can use the standard Cognos bar chart, either one, interchangeably on your report. They're extensible because, A, you download new ones that have been posted by the IBM community up on the analyticszone.com. So that's one way that they're extensible, in that there are folks like LPA and others who will create new viz.json programs that describe these visualizations and make them available up on the analytics zone. I'm told that soon, although I don't have a date for soon, I'm told that soon other people than partners, so end users who create new visualizations will also be able to post them. So if you will, visualizations are being crowdsourced. So we're not waiting for an IBM release. We're not waiting for the IBM development team to create new visualizations. You know, almost anybody can create a new visualization. And recently, and I'm talking about within the last week, they've extended this capability beyond a select group of partners to everybody on the phone, because there is now a free visualization customizer tool that you can download that allow you to modify any of the existing visualizations that are up on the analyticszone.com, or also create your own. Now, I've talked a lot about visualizations, and I haven't actually shown you one yet. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a visualization and show you what it looks like. There is on the iPad, when you install the iPad, you will receive a bunch of active report examples. Here is an example of an active report that you also will get on your iPad if you install the latest version of Cognos. And this illustrates a number of these new visualizations, in this case in an active report setting. But remember, when you've installed FixPack 1 on 10.2.1.1, all of these visualizations that I'm showing you in this active report are also available for your standard reports. So I'm going to go ahead and just walk through a couple. So here's a visualization that is not part of the standard library, and I'll actually be creating this visualization with you in one of my demonstrations today, actually something very close to it. One of the things that visualizations give you in an active report setting that I think is kind of compelling, or can be compelling, is animation. As you'll see, as I switch from prompt value to prompt value, right, I'm not just displaying my chart over here, my new visualization. I am actually animating the change. So as I move from visualization to visualization, one of the optional things you can turn on in an active report with these is an animation effect that will go along. And there are several animation effects. There are 3 or 4 or 5. Now, when you build a visualization, you can describe how many, if any, animation effects you're going to support in that visualization. All the ones that are downloadable seem to have support for at least a few of these animations. Now, animation may not seem like it adds a bunch of business value, but sometimes part of our job is to entice people to use the BI outputs that we create. And the more interesting we can make them, perhaps by adding an animation to them, perhaps the more uptake we'll have on some of the new BI that's maybe a little bit different than some of the BI we've been producing that is maybe tabular in nature. So, you know, this animation component may be interesting to you. But you see, all of these new look and feel objects, all of these objects almost look like they're graphics rather than charts if you're used to the Cognos chart world. Those are visualizations. Now, you see, I've got charts too on this same report. I can mix and match, and I can also mix and match in tabular data. This is just a simple list and a block on a page. So I can match in my visualizations and my existing Cognos content. And with this combination, create very compelling looking objects, as well as highlight new and exciting, hopefully, correlations within my data, opportunities within my data, because I can now view my data in a vastly different way. So that's what a visualization is. Now, to give you a notion of what this JSON that I was talking about looks like, and this is definitely highly technical stuff. This is your IT department working with this, not your end users. That downloadable tool, I'll tell you how to get that downloadable tool in a moment. The downloadable tool is called the Visualization Customizer, and this is the tool interface here. I'm going to go ahead and open up a visualization so you can see. I'll go ahead and I'll open a bubble chart. So this bubble chart, so this is, if you will, the development environment to create a visualization or to modify a visualization. And everything you see over here, this is sort of the previewer for what the VizJSON is describing. The VizJSON code is actually what this code is over here. So you can see it's very program language looking. That's why I say this is probably more for your IT department and less for your end user world. You know, this data section, for example, do you ever wonder how, you know, Cognos decides what to display when you drag and drop a chart on your report and it shows you bars or it shows you pies? Well, there's actually data embedded in the object to generate those bars or generate those pies. Well, there's data embedded in your VizJSON that actually tells you how to show the unpopulated visualization when it's added to a report. In the VizJSON, you also tell it that there is default measures, you tell it that there's categories, you tell it that there's series, you set the colors explicitly, you set that you're using a right angle axis, so it's X and Y, maybe you're going to change the axis to be a circular axis. All of those settings are baked into this VizJSON. And then when you're done and it looks the way you want it, you actually upload this visualization to your Cognos administration screen from your desktop. Okay, so this is not a VizJSON how to do it type webinar. This is, perhaps if you want one, we can do one. But this is just giving you a notion of what this thing VizJSON is. So this code lives behind this kind of an object. Okay, and because the person who wrote the code for this object enabled animation, on an active report, I can enable it too. I don't have to. That's just a property setting I can set. That's why it works the way it does. And if I wanted to, I could change this. I could change how the circles cluster. I could change that this is on a circular axis and it's trying to cluster all these circles together. I could change how this whole thing works with this free tool that I can download from the analytics zone. So I'm going to go back to my presentation now. And we'll be writing some reports together to build a report that's similar to what I just showed you in a moment. So that's just a screenshot of what I just showed you. There's another chart, some more VizJSON. Probably enough said from a today perspective about that code. Downloading this is very simple. And it's similar to downloading your visualizations because they both come from the same place. And that is from www.analyticszone.com. Remember the S. Analytic Zone will look like you might be in the right place. You're not. Analyticszone.com. It is a site on which you can create a user ID and password for free. There is no cost But you do have to register to be able to download things. So, to get a visualization, let's suppose you don't care about customizing, you just want to get it. Well, the first thing you got to do is you have to upgrade to 10.2.1. something. And we recommend that you go right away to the fixed pack version. Do not stop at 10.2.1.0, go directly to 10.2.1.1. Because, in part, the .1 release enables these visualizations for both active reports and standard reports. The .0 release, these only work in active reports. Now you're upgraded, you're ready to rock and roll. You've got the visualization tool in Report Studio, but you have no visualizations because when you install Cognos, there are no default visualizations included. So you go to the analyticszone.com. You register if you haven't registered. You sign in otherwise. You go to the visualization section, which I've highlighted here on the screen, and then you download visualizations. There are 30 out there right now. That number has grown. When I first went out and downloaded, there were only like 8 early on. So people are adding more. Again, right now it's a select group of partners. I understand they'll be opening that up to other posters. Okay, so pretty simple to go get them. Right, so I can extend my visualization library by going and getting them and downloading them in this fashion. Once I've downloaded them, though, I have to make them available to my Cognos environment. Okay, I do that by going to the Cognos administration screens. So on the Cognos administration setup, right, you launch IBM Cognos administration if you're an administrator. There's a new tab, and that tab is called Library. And when you first install 10.2.1, it'll be empty. And there's an upload button, it's right there. You'll click on that button, and there'll be a little browse link, and you'll be able to browse to where you downloaded those individual visualization zip files. You'll pick the ones you'd like to load into your library, you'll hit upload, and Cognos will load them into the library and place them on this screen for you. By virtue of them being on the screen, when you add a visualization to a report, it will list all of the visualizations that you've uploaded in the wizard for the visualization tool. Now, each of these visualizations has a property sheet because everything you load into Cognos is part of the whole Cognos security structure. These are no different. So each of these has a property sheet. On that property sheet is a permissions tab. On that permissions tab, you could set that certain visualizations are only available to certain user communities. I'm not sure how often that feature would be used. I'm thinking that for the most part, if I've uploaded and made a visualization available for a report author, I'm not going to limit who can author reports or run reports with certain visualizations in them. But, it's new, and I have yet to see, just how this is used in the field in terms of permissions. But when you upload them, the permissions they'll inherit are going to be, and everybody who can author can add into a report kind of security. So I've done this on the environment that I'm going to show you from a demonstration perspective. So I've already gone on, logged in, downloaded visualizations, uploaded them to my library, and now I'm going to actually go ahead and use them with you to create some reports. When you go into Report Studio or Cognos Workspace Advanced, and you go to the Toolbox tab, and this is a screenshot of Report Studio. When you go to the Toolbox tab, you'll see there's a visualization guy in there. There's also the chart guy. He's still there. You can still put charts on your report, and you actually still have access to both the IBM Cognos 8 chart engine and the IBM Cognos 10 chart engine in this release. You also now can do new, if you will, new charts. We'll call them visualizations, right? That in addition to that give you different looks. So, for example, there's a heat map. You see a tree map by value. There's another tree map that's by category. When I took this screenshot, I had only loaded those few visualizations. That was the extent of my library. As you'll see in a moment when I write the report, I've installed some more visualizations. Okay, but this is what I mean by there's a new tool in your toolbox, and that may be the first indication to your user community, your author community, that there's anything new, right? Is because I've got this tool in my toolbox. So I'm going to do a demonstration on my development server. First of all, of adding a visualization to an active report, and then I'll create a standard report using a visualization. I'll use Cognos Workspace Advanced for that, since I'll have used Report Studio for the active report. And then I'm going to take and I'll save that standard report, and I'm going to drag its contents into a Cognos workspace and show you how the visualizations work within a workspace. So that's what we're going to do next. So I have logged into my 10.2.1.1 environment. I will very quickly, just in a live fashion here, take you to the security screen. Quickly may have overstated it. And I just want to show you my library tab. The library tab right here in the center. So this is where all of the visualizations I've uploaded. You see I've got quite a few. All the visualizations I've uploaded live. As I mentioned, they each have a property sheet with a permissions tab. And right now, my permissions are all defaulting so that everyone can use these visualizations. I haven't changed any of them. You'll also note that there is a download link. That download link is so you can take a visualization in your library, drop it on your desktop, use the customizer on that visualization, maybe give it a new name, and then upload it as a new visualization, or potentially overwrite an existing utilization. So the download is here. So you have an upload button, and you've got a download tool so that you can manage your visualization extensible library. So that's the library. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the Cognos connection, and I have a report that just as a starter report to kind of goose us along here from a timing perspective. I'll start with the active report starter. So I have a basic active report set up. As you know, I do author active reports with Report Studio. And here's an active report, and it has on it just some tabular data. It's going to have effectively two prompts. They're two toggle button type prompts. The first one is going to prompt on region. Second one is going to prompt on product line. And what this report does so far is it will filter that tabular data, that list that's going to show data by country, and it's going to show data for each of my regions, as well as for both my camping equipment data and my golf equipment data. And I think you probably agree that this visualization is not yet very compelling. So I'm going to now add a visualization to my active report to express good business value, right? This isn't just about pretty, but I'm going to express new business value with a brand new type of object to explore this data. So I'll go back to my active report. I'll go to my toolbox, and in my toolbox, I have my visualization tool. I'll drop that here into my table. And this is the list of all the visualizations that have been loaded into my library. So you can see I've got, this report looks a lot like an area chart in the chart tool. However, it is a smooth chart. It's not an angular chart. And it's also got some animation opportunities. And you can see IBM authored this one. I have bar charts. I have stacked bar charts. I have clustered bar charts. I have box plots. So these are similar to chart engine charts. So I didn't pick these to do as my demonstration today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do something called a packed bubble. So that's the visualization I'm going to add. So the packed bubble expresses data in tightly packed bubbles spread over a grid. And you can actually display a whole bunch of data in a little bit of space, and you can see the spatial relationship in terms of the size of the bubbles and the colors of the bubble. And it's going to give me a very different view of the data than the tabular data will. Now, if you're a Report Studio author, you're probably rather familiar with this notion of drop zones on objects like charts, like crosstabs. So now I've got drop zones on visualizations. I also happen to have pre-built a query, again, just in the interest of time. I have a query here called Q product types. So that would be the wrong query. That would be the right query. So I'm just going to take from my query some data. So I'm going to drop revenue into my size measure. So this is going to control the size of each bubble. So the bigger the revenue, the larger the bubble. All right. I'm going to drop product type in where it says bubbles. So I should get one bubble per product type in my query results. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to color the bubbles by what country is represented by the bubble. Now, I want to filter this chart by my values of region and my values of product line that have been selected. So I need to add those two to my chart invisibly because this is an active report. And in order to filter an object in an active report, I need to have the values I'm filtering on in the object. Now, interestingly enough, if you are an active reports author, you have just heard me say something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, at least on the surface. I've said I'm going to filter my visualization. Now, active report authors know that in order to actually present charts on an active report page, I would actually need to place that chart in a deck or a data deck. And then I would need to actually interact my prompts and the deck so that the right chart on the right card in the deck got turned over at the right time. And indeed, I can't even apply a filter property to a chart. Visualizations are not charts. Visualizations actually support this notion of a filter. And the reason is because when the visualizations are created, they're actually rendered on your PC in real time. In other words, I don't have to pre-render all of the visualization outputs. They are rendered as needed. Because in the active report, in this case, the Rave engine is actually embedded in the MHT file output, whereas a chart can't be rendered live. The chart has to be pre-rendered, which is why it has to live in a deck. So you don't place visualizations in a deck like you do a chart. You actually place them on the page and you use the filter properties to actually render the right data at the right time based on, let's say, prompt objects in your active report page. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set an animation effect on here. Since this is an active report, I'm going to go ahead and do that so you can see it. I'll pick the transition one, which I think looks kind of fun. Now, I have to connect this guy to my prompt, so I'm going to actually run the wizard to create a connection between my region prompt and my PECT button. So my region is going to filter my bubble. So I have to pick the bubble and then I can pick the filter using the same variable that it's using to filter the list. It's actually selecting the list because my list is in a deck for you active report authors out there. So I'll connect those two objects. I'm going to connect my product line prompt to my my PECT bubble as well. So I can filter on two items at once. Again, I'm using the same variable that I'm using to select the proper tabular data. My connections are done. My animation is turned on. My drop zones have been filled in with data from a query. I'm ready to run. Again, this is an active report, so it runs and generates the report. With a visualization in the MHT file will be the Rave engine and the viz.json and the data, and it will render the chart type object. I keep calling them a chart. It's a visualization, but it looks like a chart to me, right? So, you know, it'll render the visualization based on the instructions. So it hasn't pre-rendered this. It is rendering it as we go. And see, that animation effect is simply because I turned on that property. If the animation effect doesn't appeal to you, then you need not turn on those properties, right? You can just, you know, in your style guide for writing reports, you would indicate that that should be turned off. So that is as easy as it gets, in my opinion. These visualizations are very, very straightforward to add to a report. And there's an example of adding one to an active report. So I'm going to go ahead and now create another report. And this time I'm going to use Cognos Workspace Advanced for this report. So active report, now I'm doing what I'll call a standard report. Runs live as we go. So here's a standard report that, again, I started in the interest of time for today. And this is a cost by year and product line report. It's got a parameterized filter on it. So as I pick a new region, it reruns the report and it presents data just for that region. When it comes up, it starts up displaying data for all regions. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a visualization to the bottom of this report right here in Cognos Workspace Advanced. I'm going to go with a tree map by category this time. So I'll go to my toolbox. Oh wait, this isn't Cognos Workspace Advanced. This is Report Studio. I told you I would do CWA, so let me do that. Apologies. Shouldn't let me get away with that. Now what's interesting is in CWA that inline prompt will not be in preview mode here. I won't be able to see that inline prompt until I run this report as a consumer. Right, see, it will not be actually prompt, so it's just going to go with the default value of all. That's okay, because we'll run it as a consumer once we finish offering it. So I'll go to my toolbox in CWA. There's my visualization tool. I'll drop it in. I think I said I was going to do a tree map by category, which is this guy right here. So I'll drop him in. Won't render with data until I have all the data in it that I need. Okay. So I'm going to go to my source data here, and I will go and pick the data that I need. Product cost will be my measure. And let's do product line. So I'll go down here to product line. Product line as level 1. My year close date as level 2. See, I'm using the same data that's in the tabular data up above now. So year close date. And then finally, when I drop in this last item, region from retailers, I should get a nice rendering. There. So there is a rendered in preview mode in Cognos Workspace Advanced. I've rendered this this map that's showing me, and this is showing it to me for all regions. And if you can see that, it's a little small. The each of the boxes is labeled with a region, and the box size is controlled by cost. And you see I've got collections, if you will, little clusters of boxes, one for each year. So it's a multi-dimensional analysis, but it's in a two-dimensional space, right? There are properties on these things. I think I can set a property on here to make this just a smidge bigger. Yeah, let me make the width 1,000. I think it'll look better wider. Okay. In a standard report, those animation effects are not available. So that's maybe they'll change that in the future release, but right now those animations are not available. Now this object, this guy is associated with a query, and I want to filter this object on the same drop down as I'm filtering the cross tab. Otherwise, they won't stay in sync, right? So I'm going to, with this object selected, I'm going to go ahead and create a custom filter. And let's see. Oh, I had the wrong thing selected. Let me select region, since that's what I want to filter in, and create a custom filter on region. And I'm going to use the prompt, and the prompt name, as I recall, is P region up in the upper one. And if I use the same prompt name, it should stay in sync. No reason for me to guess, though. I can just edit my filters and just verify that the parameters are the same. P region. Yep, we're good. So now when in theory, if I've done this correctly in front of the live studio audience, when I run, it ought to filter both objects in the same fashion. And as I change, it will change each object to the region, and I can go back to my all region view. Nope, it's a required prompt in this case, so I can play with that later. So there, standard report. Not a whole lot different than doing it in an active report, although since I'm using a parameterized filter, that whole linking my prompt to my object is done in a vastly different way. It's filtering based on the same parameter. So that's a standard report, this time built with CWA that I can run. I've got that same report built in Report Studio already out here and saved. That's what this guy is. As you'll see on this guy, I set it up so that I can go back to the all regions level if I want to. And it'll work for all regions. But it's effectively the same thing. I just happen to do one in Report Studio and one in CWA. So adding a visualization to your report is as straightforward as adding a chart to your report. The trick is that you have to upgrade, first of all, 10.2.1 where these are supported, you have to go to the analyticszone.com and download a bunch of starter ones so that you have anything in your visualization library to add. Once they're there, from the analyticszone.com, you can also download the customization tool, and then you can start, if you want to, learn this VizJSON language. You can start to either customize the ones you downloaded, or you can actually build your own from scratch, although I think I would always customize. I'm not sure I would start with a blank sheet myself. I would just change one that's almost what I want to something new. But that's effectively the life cycle story to get them into a report. There's one last part of the demo I want to show you, and that is how does this report with a visualization in it work and interact in a Cognos workspace environment. So if you've been on our webinars before, you know that Cognos Workspace is a tool that you can use to collect pieces of existing reports and assemble them onto a workspace. A lot of people think of this as building a dashboard, and I think that's a reasonable way to describe it. But what you are technically creating in Cognos is workspaces. So I've launched Workspace. I've gone and said create a new workspace. I'm going to navigate to my visualization report, my CWA final. This is the one that has both the tabular data and the visualization data, as well as that prompt in it. And you can see I've got my crosstab in there. I've got my tree map in there. I'm going to go ahead and drag my tree map on. Now, because of how Cognos Workspace works, it's going to ask me to pick a region to start. I'm just going to click Finish there and go with all regions. So I'll have my nice big visualization. I'll also drop my crosstab on. What the heck? Now, that's good. It's nice to know that they work. But the thing that's about Cognos Workspace is that this is an end-user tool, number one, that you get with the enhanced consumer license level. The nice thing about the workspace is that it allows my users to add prompts to workspaces that are not necessarily prompts that were in the report that I started with. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the toolbox here and I'm going to add a couple of prompts, filters. So I'll add a select value filter down here. And what Cognos does is it looks at the object on my page and it says, all right, so what can you filter by what? What things can be filtered by a selection? So I'm going to filter by product line, and I'm also going to filter by year. And both of these filters will impact both my tabular data and my visualization. So I'm going to go ahead and run my data. Did I do the same one twice? I did. Let me try that again. And get you a second one, otherwise the demonstration is not quite as valuable as it. Let's go with year. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and run my visualization and my tabular data for just a couple of product lines and just a couple of years. So you see, visualizations have full integration to the capabilities in Cognos Workspace. So they're not separate, they're not special, they're not somehow waiting for the next release in order to integrate fully into the end user world of a library of widgets that I can place on a workspace. They are already fully integrated in this release. 10.2.1.1, mind you, this is what this is at, not .0. And you can interact with them like you can interact with any other object as a widget on a workspace. So those are the demonstrations. And that actually completes what I had planned to cover for today in terms of visualization. So Jesse, have we been getting any questions?
We have a couple questions. Before we jump into questions, I just want to share some of the poll results.
Sure.
So in a poll, we asked people what version of Cognos they're currently running, first and foremost, starting with 8 all the way up to the 10.1.1 version. And the good news is there isn't very many people still on 8. That's down to about 6% of the respondents. There's a lot on 10.1.1. That was the most frequent actually. 32% of the users are still on 10.1.1, which is 2 years old.
Yeah, well, it's 3 years. 3 releases back.
So for those of you on 10.1.1, you are not alone, but there's a lot of capabilities that, you're missing 2 years of releases basically there. And about 20% of the respondents are on 10.211. So we have a lot of, which is surprising. I'm surprised there's that many because that just came out in September. We also asked, what's the primary ad hoc tool that is currently being used? And that was actually pretty even between Cognos Workspace Advanced and Query Studio. So that was so if you're still on Query Studio, you know, I can understand if you're on 8X why you still be on Query Studio. But if you're on any of the 10.1 version between Business Insight Advanced and Cognos Workspace Advanced, you know, let's get those users transitioned. There's a lot of new capabilities in CWA that they should have access to.
There is a lot of value to that.
The next question, Rich, was just on active reports. You know, is your organization currently using active reports? And about 30% of respondents are not currently using it, and about 20% have done it with the proof of concept. Okay, and beyond that, there's about 10% who are making heavy. So there's some adoption going on. The last question was on Cognos Workspace Advanced as a dashboard tool. Are you using, Cognos Workspace, not Advanced, just the dashboard? Is your organization leveraging Cognos Workspace? And about 1/3 of the respondents are apparently leveraging Cognos Workspace, and 2/3 still are not. Now, that could be based on those percentages I just shared from what version people are on.
Sure.
That could be the driver. But certainly Cognos Workspace in its most recent release seems to have a lot of the capabilities required to really begin to take advantage of it as a dashboard tool.
It does. I'd say starting with 10.2, when they increased the level of security, the two types of users, and they added that in, I think that enables a lot of people to roll.
Okay. All right, now a couple questions. So one question comes from Goodyear. If the boxes on a tree map are based on a dimensional model or a cube, can you actually drill into those tree maps?
I am unaware of drilling capability on a visualization, but because it is a compelling question, we're going to find out together.
That is a very good question.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build a tree map in Report Studio in a regular report. Certainly, there's no drilling in an active report because drill down is not a supported function in an active report. So I'll go ahead and I'll grab some data from an OLAP data source, and we'll build a tree map. We'll build basically the same tree map that we actually just did. So why don't you ask me a question while we're doing that, so I can fill the airtime here.
Sure. Another question from BOCES here in New York is about Cognos Insight and its support of these visualizations. Does the current release of Cognos Insight support these? Are there plans to embed these in Cognos Insight that you're aware of?
Cognos Insight does not support visualizations directly. In other words, the library of visualizations by download is not also available to Insight. That's really only available to the BI Enterprise or your Cognos Express users. However, a lot of the visualizations, like a map like this, like a tree map and a heat map, are part of Insight. It's not clear to me if or when Cognos will allow you to incorporate new visualizations into Insight in this kind of way. All right. Anything else while I give this a shot? Let's see. I'm going to go drag in region.
There was a question about the animation. It looks like the person asked a question answered it, but just to hit the point on animation, which animation is a funny thing because, right, with this most recent version of iOS that came out, I don't know if people have seen in the news how like 5% of people that actually it can actually make them sick, essentially, the animation going on in iOS right now.
Really?
Yeah, so so it's actually been in the news a lot because of this most recent iOS release. But you know, so is it a benefit, or is it, you know, does it cause more harm than it benefits? I think that remains to be seen. But I enjoy the new version of iOS and animation, and I certainly enjoy animations in active reports. So the answer to the question is animation capabilities are only supported in active reports. If you're building a report in Report Studio or Cognos Workspace Advanced, when it's rendered, it will not support animations again unless it's an active report.
Mm-hmm.
If you're big on animations and you need it to interact with some live data, you could theoretically use Cognos Workspace and create a dashboard in Cognos Workspace that combines an active report as well as some live reports or components from your live report.
Mm-hmm.
And that could give you the effect if it means a lot to you on the animation side.
Okay, so to answer Goodyear's question, which I thought was a great one, and the reason I didn't want to answer it directly, I knew you could drill down. I just didn't know how many axes you could drill down. So let me give you an example. So I built a similar report to what I built before. Region is shown, so I have a cluster of boxes. For each region, I put year in for a box, and each box represents a product line within a year, within a region, right? So there you go. I can click on a year in one of the boxes, and it will drill me down to the level below year, which is quarter. If I click on, let's say, Americas, it will actually drill on that axis as well. And the next level below Americas, oh, I thought it drilled on that axis. I thought it did a couple minutes ago. No, it's still drilling on
the time.
No, it's still drilling on time. Okay. So, and then drilling up. Let me, that's interesting. Let's drill down. There's drill up. So there are drilling capabilities. If I click over here on Americas, will it work there? I think if I right click and I do drill down, it will let me pick Americas. So it's not as easy as clicking on a spot, yeah, but it does appear that all three of the layers in the box are drillable. But to do so, since they're not hyperlinking like they would, let's say, in a crosstab or a list, it would need to do the right-click, drill down, drill up, and use. So I could drill down now on camping equipment as opposed to on Canada or on anything else. And now I've got cooking gear and tents, and now I've got countries, I've got product types, and I have months. So I have effectively now drilled down on all three axes. And I'll just remind you of the report. The axes, right, are these three levels on this particular visualization. So I knew you could drill on level 1. I have just learned with you that I can also drill on levels 2 and 3. So thanks for that question.
Okay.
All right.
So there's another question here on a larger question about Cognos and roadmap. Just when is Cognos 11 coming out? The question specifically. Rick and I just came back from IBM, and I don't think we have anything we could really share there.
No, I do know that there is a couple of new things in alpha right now. So the next release is in the beginning stages of testing. But there's no time frame that was published for when that would go from alpha to beta and then beta to generally available. So there is stuff that's out there in test. I don't think they're changing that to an 11 yet. I think it'll be a 10 dot still. But there is no timing that they shared in any of the sessions with me.
Yeah, and there's been, how long has 10 been out now? 3 years.
10's been out for a while, yeah.
And how long was 8 out before 10?
Oh gosh, well you remember you got all the way up to 4 over a period of what, 5-6 years?
Yeah. Yeah. So if it followed the same trend, we could have another 2-3 years of 10x releases.
Yeah. But there's absolutely stuff that's out of the labs and into alpha. So that I can share, but I have no timing per se.
Okay.
Anything else?
There was a specific question on the palette. Can you change the palette used in the visualization?
It's something that I was looking into myself. I was looking at, what are the clickable levels, right? Can I change colors? Is there a palette setting? And the palette is part of the viz JSON. And it's not clear to me that you can make it a property for the pallet appeared at this time. When I talked to our guys who went to training on this, there were a number of things under the category of they want to add that as a property, but it's not there yet. It looks like the pallet setting and being able to create a custom pallet is one of those things.
Okay, the time is now 1 p.m. I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We'll send a follow-up email by early next week. This webinar will be posted on our YouTube channel. I sent everyone a link in the chat window to our YouTube channel, to YouTube/LPA Systems. If you go subscribe to that channel, that's the easiest way to get notified of these playbacks. Plus, you won't have to fill out our form on our website to make you enter all your contact info. So it can save you a little bit of time. So thank you, Rich, for putting this together for all of our folks today, and thanks everyone who called in.
Yes, thank you, everybody.